Hello, and welcome to the channel. I'm glad you're here, and I truly appreciate you listening today. If you enjoy the stories, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more. Before we begin, I'd like to mention that the content presented here is purely for entertainment. The stories and theories shared are speculative and not supported by concrete evidence. They're not meant to be taken as factual information, so please keep an open mind and enjoy the tales. Viewer discretion is advised. Now, let's settle in and enjoy today's stories. The dark web is a labyrinth of the digital realm, a place where secrets simmer beneath layers of encryption, hidden from the light of day. It's a realm where the boundaries between curiosity and danger blur, where the pursuit of forbidden knowledge can lead to remarkable discoveries or unspeakable consequences. I've been a techie all my life, a self-proclaimed cyber archaeologist, navigating these dark corridors out of a morbid fascination. But nothing could have prepared me for the night I stumbled upon the NASA database. It was a rainy Tuesday evening, the kind where raindrops pelt against your window like tiny fists, and the world outside feels as cold and desolate as the void between stars. I was in my cramped apartment, the glow from my computer screen casting long shadows on the walls. I'd been surfing through the usual onion sites, my preferred haunt for conspiracy theories, forbidden knowledge, and the digital detritus of countless forgotten secrets. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just following my usual routine of wandering into the strange and unknown. That's when I saw the post. It was buried deep in a forgotten forum, a thread with 0 replies, posted by a user with the handle Astral Fox. No avatar, no history, just a single haunting thread titled, "I found something big, NASA unlisted database, leaked." The body of the post was simple but chilling. Access restricted. Must prove you're serious. DM for details. I hesitated. My instincts told me it was probably a hoax. The dark web is rife with scams, a hunting ground for trolls, and people fishing for bitcoins in exchange for empty promises. But there was something about the tone of the post, an earnestness that struck a chord with me. I decided to bite. I sent a direct message. Astral Fox replied within minutes, their message popping up on my screen with a quiet ping. "If you want access, you'll need to solve this puzzle." Attached to the message was a string of alphanumeric gibberish, a cipher it seemed. I've broken my fair share of simple codes, but this one was different. At first, it looked like a standard cryptographic challenge, but as I worked through the permutations, I realized it was layered with several levels of complexity. It took hours of frantically scribbling notes, feeding the data into decryption programs, and manually testing variations before I cracked it. The code revealed a hidden .onion link. I paused for a moment, considering the consequences, but curiosity won out. I clicked the link. My Tor browser flickered, and for a split second, my VPN dropped. A glitch that sent a cold shiver down my spine. I quickly reconnected, then my screen filled with a simple page, bearing the NASA logo. But the logo looked wrong, slightly distorted, as if it had been recreated from memory by someone who had only glanced at it once. Below it was a login screen, demanding a username and password. I entered the credentials provided by Astral Fox, and the page refreshed. A directory appeared, straight out of a 90s website, with files listed in strings of letters and numbers. I clicked on a few directories, my heart racing. Most were unremarkable, filled with documents detailing mundane research projects, engineering logs, and communication records. But one folder caught my eye, Nexus X Projects. I clicked on the folder, and my browser window populated with dozens of file names, each stranger than the last. Phase 1 arcana.doc, Project Lucifer.xlsx, and Wormhole Simulation VR.exe. My heart pounded in my chest as I opened the first document. It was a memorandum dated 1978, marked NASA Internal Memorandum, Eyes Only. The header bore an unfamiliar classification code, Arcana. The document described a project that seemed to involve NASA and another organization, cryptically referred to as the Overseers. The contents were surreal, references to quantum entanglement, dark matter manipulation, and incredibly, interdimensional travel. The technical jargon was dense, yet the implications were clear. They were experimenting with things far beyond the realms of conventional science. As I scrolled down, I found notes about tests that seemed to involve human subjects. My mouth went dry. I needed a break, something to clear my head, but the pull of the unknown was too strong. I opened the next file, Project Lucifer.xx, a spreadsheet populated with coordinates, longitude and latitude points, paired with cryptic labels like Station Alpha and Omega Outpost. I cross-referenced the coordinates with an online map. Some were in familiar places, mountains, deserts, remote Arctic zones, but others were in the middle of the ocean or in locations that didn't exist on any official maps. There were places labeled Antarctic Gate, Congo Anomaly, and the Kerguelen Station. My stomach churned with a mix of dread and exhilaration. What the hell was this? Then there was the executable file, Wormhole Simulation VR.x. Every instinct screamed at me to stop, to close the window and forget this ever happened. But the itch of curiosity burned hotter. I had to know. I clicked on the file, and a command line interface appeared, instructing me to connect my VR headset. I hesitated for a moment, a bead of sweat forming on my brow. Was I really about to do this? With trembling hands, I followed the instructions. I found myself in a digital void, pitch black, except for a single point of light in the distance. Moving towards it, the screen erupted in a swirling vortex of color and sound, a tunnel of some sort, a wormhole if I had to guess. The sensation was disorienting, like being sucked into a cosmic whirlpool. And then suddenly, the vortex stabilized. I was standing in a large metallic room, like a laboratory, but the walls seemed to pulse with a soft organic light. In the center stood a massive machine, humming with energy. Beside it, a figure stood motionless, dressed in a suit that looked almost organic, its surface shifting like liquid metal. The figure turned to face me, its helmet smooth and featureless. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. Then, a voice spoke directly into my mind, clear as day. "You shouldn't be here." Before I could react, the figure reached out, touching a panel on the machine. The room flickered and everything went black. The VR program crashed, my headset buzzing with static. I tore it off, panting, my heart hammering in my chest. I sat there, frozen, my mind racing. Was this real? A hallucination? Some advanced simulation? My screen suddenly went black again, this time filling with a new message, the letters appearing one by one. "You have been warned. This is your only chance to walk away." My blood ran cold. I tried to type a response, but my hands were shaking. Before I could finish, my computer screen flickered again. An image of the NASA logo appeared, but it was glitched, the letters distorting and rearranging themselves. Underneath, a single word blinked in and out of existence. Overseers. I yanked the power cable from my computer, plunging my room into darkness. My mind raced with questions. Who were the Overseers? How had they known I was there? Was it possible for them to have tracked me so quickly? I felt a creeping dread settle into my bones, the sensation of being watched. I paced my apartment, trying to make sense of it all, but no matter how much I tried to rationalize it, a deeper fear kept clawing at the edges of my thoughts. Had I stumbled onto something that defied the very nature of reality? Something that shouldn't exist? The next few days were a blur of paranoia and anxiety. I stayed away from my computer, kept my phone off, but strange things kept happening. My phone, when I did turn it on, glitched incessantly, the screen flickering with static at random intervals. My internet connection slowed to a crawl, often cutting out completely. Even my smart TV began to act erratically, flipping through channels on its own. And then the cars began to show up. Unmarked black SUVs would park across the street from my apartment at odd hours. Once, I saw a man in a suit standing just outside my building, staring directly at my window. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. 3 days after my initial discovery, I was awoken in the middle of the night by a loud knock on my door. A cold, persistent knock that cut through the stillness of the dark like a knife. I didn't move, my heart hammering in my chest. The knock came again, louder this time. I crept to the door, peering through the peephole. 2 men stood outside, both in black suits, their faces obscured by the dim light of the hallway. No badges, no identifying marks, just blank expressions. "Can we come in?" one asked, his voice low and firm, more a statement than a question. "We need to talk about the files you accessed." I froze, my thoughts racing. Should I deny everything? Pretend I didn't know what they were talking about? But something about their demeanor, their calm, unblinking eyes, told me that would be a mistake. I nodded slowly and opened the door just a crack. The men entered, moving with a quiet precision that sent a chill down my spine. One of them closed the door behind him, while the other produced a small metallic device from his pocket. It looked like a thumb drive, but with a smooth, featureless surface. "Place your thumb here," the man instructed, his voice steady and firm. I hesitated. "What is it?" He didn't answer, just held the device out further. The other man's gaze remained locked on me, a silent warning in his eyes. Trapped and unsure of what else to do, I pressed my thumb against the device. It buzzed softly, vibrating against my skin for a moment, before emitting a faint beep. The man pocketed the device and spoke again. "You accessed restricted files. You need to understand that what you saw is classified, and for your own safety, you need to forget it ever happened." My heart pounded in my chest. What if I can't just forget? His lips curved into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "This is not a threat," he said softly. "It is a warning. Curiosity has consequences." Without another word, they turned and left as quietly as they had come. I locked the door behind them and slumped to the floor, my mind racing. What had they done to me with that device? Was it some sort of tracking tool, or had they implanted something in me? The days that followed were filled with a gnawing unease. I tried to go back to my normal routine, to forget what had happened, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. At night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying the events over and over. I'd hear phantom sounds, a creaking floorboard, the low hum of a car engine outside, and my heart would start pounding again. One night, as I was tossing and turning, a package arrived at my door. No postage, no return address, just my name in neat black letters. I opened it cautiously, my hands trembling. Inside was a small USB drive, unmarked and featureless. A single sticky note was attached. For your eyes only. Remember. I didn't know whether to plug it in or throw it out the window, but curiosity got the better of me. I connected it to my old, isolated laptop, disconnected from the internet. The drive contained a single folder, labeled Revelations. Inside the folder were dozens of documents and images. There were files detailing covert government operations, strange scientific experiments, and references to something called Project Aurora. One document in particular caught my eye. Temporal Displacement and Quantum Echoes, a study of parallel realities. The text was dense, filled with jargon that I barely understood, but it seemed to describe attempts to create gateways between different realities, parallel universes. My head spun as I read further. The files contained notes about test subjects, machines designed to manipulate time and space, and cryptic mentions of the overseers. It was as if I had stumbled upon the script of a sci-fi thriller, but it was real. The photos were grainy but unmistakably authentic, showing strange devices, mysterious landscapes, and places that seemed alien. Then I found a final text file titled readme.txt. It contained only a single line. Curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back. We are watching. I pushed my chair back, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. Whoever had sent this wanted me to know they were still aware of me, that I was still on their radar. But what was their goal? Were they warning me off, or was this another challenge? I tried to put the USB drive out of my mind, but the thought of what I'd seen haunted me. I decided to dig deeper. I contacted some old friends, fellow hackers, conspiracy theorists, anyone who might have a clue about what I had stumbled upon. One of them, a contact known as Shadow Scribe, finally responded. We met in a secure online chat room. "Do you have any idea what you're playing with?" Shadow Scribe typed. "No," I replied honestly, "but I need to know." "There are rumors," Shadow Scribe continued, "old stories about the overseers, a group that works outside all known agencies. They're said to deal with anomalies, things that don't belong in our reality." "Anomalies? Like what?" "Like cracks in the universe, things leaking in from other places, other dimensions." I felt a chill run down my spine. "Are they real?" "Real enough," Shadow Scribe typed back. "And if you've got their attention, you're in deep. You need to be careful. Some say they control more than you think." Before I could reply, Shadow Scribe logged off abruptly. I sat back, staring at my screen, the implications of his words sinking in. A few days later, as I was contemplating what to do next, my laptop flickered to life on its own, displaying a new message. "You have seen too much. Meet us at the place where time bends." Beneath the text, coordinates flashed on the screen, the same ones I had seen in the Project Lucifer.xlsx file. I felt a cold wave of fear wash over me. They were inviting me, or rather, daring me, to go to a specific location. A place I now knew was in the middle of the Nevada desert, not far from an old military base. The message blinked away, leaving my screen blank. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, looking into the abyss. I had a choice. Back away now, and forget this ever happened, or take the plunge and see where the rabbit hole led. I decided to go. I packed a bag, took a burner phone, and headed out to the coordinates. The journey took me deep into the desert, past abandoned military checkpoints, and along winding, desolate roads. As I drove, I kept glancing in my rearview mirror, half expecting to see a black SUV tailing me, but the road remained empty. I arrived at the coordinates at dusk. The area was a barren expanse of sand and rock, with nothing but the fading sun and a cold wind that howled like a distant siren. I waited, unsure of what would happen next, my heart racing with every passing minute. Then I heard it, a low hum, growing louder, vibrating through the air like a tuning fork. A flash of light erupted before me, blinding me for a moment. When I blinked the spots out of my eyes, I saw them. A figure standing a few feet away, dressed in the same strange organic suit I had seen in the VR simulation. The figure's helmet was smooth and featureless, reflecting the dying light. It stood perfectly still, like a statue. Then, without moving, it spoke in a calm, measured voice. "You have come too far," it said. "You have seen what was not meant to be seen. You are at a crossroads now. Turn back and live your life, or step forward and face the unknown." I swallowed hard. What is this place? What are you? The figure seemed to pause, considering my question. This is a nexus point, a place where worlds overlap. We are the caretakers, the gatekeepers. We are the overseers. Before I could ask another question, the ground beneath me began to tremble, and the air around us shimmered like heat waves on asphalt. I felt a strange sensation, as if gravity itself was shifting, pulling me in multiple directions at once. The figure raised a hand. "Last chance," it said. "Choose wisely." Before I could answer, everything around me warped, the ground undulating like water, the sky tearing open with cracks of blinding light. I felt myself being pulled, my body stretching and twisting, a kaleidoscope of colors and shapes swirling around me. Then, nothing. Silence. I woke up on the floor of my apartment, drenched in sweat. My head throbbed, and my vision was blurry. For a moment, I thought it had all been a nightmare. But then, as I looked around, I noticed something was different. Everything in my room was reversed, as if someone had flipped it. Even the writing on my books was backward, like a mirror image. My phone buzzed on the table. I picked it up with a trembling hand. A new message flashed across the screen. "Welcome to the other side. Remember, reality is just one version of the truth." I sat down, the weight of what had happened crashing over me. Had I crossed into a parallel universe? Or was this some elaborate manipulation of my senses, my reality? I didn't know. All I knew was that my life would never be the same again. So here I am, writing this down. If you are reading this, heed my warning. Some paths should not be followed. Some truths are best left buried. But if you find yourself staring into the abyss, remember, reality is far more fragile than you. I've been navigating the dark web for years, always careful, always discreet. It's a world I know well, a place where anything can be found if you know where to look. Illegal markets, obscure conspiracies, classified documents, and encrypted networks where the curious can lose their way. Most of the time, I steer clear of the dangerous stuff. I'm more interested in knowledge, the secrets that governments hide, the files they don't want the public to see. But on one particular night, I found something that should have stayed hidden. It was an ordinary evening in my small, cluttered apartment. Rain pattered against the windows, and the only light in the room came from my monitor, bathing everything in a cold blue glow. I had my VPN running, my Tor browser open, and I was deep in one of the lesser-known dark web forums, browsing threads about obscure research programs, old CIA documents, and anything that promised a hint of forbidden knowledge. That's when I saw it. A post, buried near the bottom of the forum by a user called Cosmic Truth. The title read, "NASA Unlisted Database Leaked. See what they don't want you to know." It looked like a typical conspiracy post. Nothing unusual. But something about the username gnawed at me, like I had seen it somewhere before. I clicked on the post. The post was brief, a single paragraph, accompanied by a link to an encrypted site. What NASA has been hiding will change everything you know about our universe. The truth is out there. Leaked files, internal reports, unlisted missions, proof of things you won't believe. Only serious researchers should attempt access. Most of the time, these kinds of posts are dead ends, hoaxes, attempts to scam users into paying for access to files that are either corrupted or completely fake. But something about this one felt different. The phrasing, the fact that it wasn't asking for payment, just a direct link. My gut told me not to, but curiosity pulled me deeper. I clicked the link. The site opened with a blank page, except for a single line of text and a password prompt. The message read, "You are entering restricted territory. Only those with the key can proceed." I had no idea what the password could be, but I wasn't about to let that stop me. After an hour of running basic cryptographic checks on the site, I discovered something. Hidden in the site's source code was a series of numbers, coordinates it seemed. I cross-referenced them with known NASA facilities, and one matched perfectly, an unlisted research station in Antarctica. I typed in the coordinates as the password. The screen flickered and the site opened. What I found there was beyond anything I could have expected. The page that loaded was simple, utilitarian, but unmistakably official. No flashy graphics, no ads, just a directory of files and folders. At the top, in plain text, was the heading, NASA X Program Files, classified access only. I felt a surge of adrenaline. I'd stumbled upon something real, something NASA had tried to bury deep in the darkest corners of the web. I scrolled through the list of folders. Most of them had cryptic names like X Project 314 and Operation Ark. My heart raced as I hovered over each one, debating whether to click. I started with a file simply titled Subject Omega Report. It was a text document dated 10 years ago. It described an experiment involving gravitational anomalies and the testing of something called temporal distortion fields. As I read through the report, my hands trembled. They had been working on manipulating time itself, testing how objects and, disturbingly, living subjects could be affected by changes in gravity and time flow. One line stood out. The subject has shown signs of reality displacement. We believe it has glimpsed a space outside of known dimensions. Further testing is required, though the risks of psychological breakdown are increasing. The hairs on my neck stood up. What was this? Reality displacement? I could hardly process what I was reading, but it was clear that NASA was involved in something far beyond ordinary space exploration. I spent hours digging deeper into the database. The more I found, the more unsettled I became. There were logs of unlisted missions, ones that had never been publicly disclosed. Some of them seemed relatively harmless, high-orbit satellite launches, deep space probes, but others were terrifying. One file, labeled Project Gateway, detailed a mission to explore something called an extra-dimensional rift that had been detected on the far side of the moon. The document outlined a crude mission, one that had supposedly taken place 10 years earlier, but none of this had ever been mentioned in the news, in scientific papers, or even in conspiracy circles. The mission report claimed that the rift had been stable, but dangerous. The crew had made contact with something, or someone, inside the rift. The details were vague, deliberately redacted, but one phrase repeated over and over. Non-Earth intelligence confirmed. I stopped reading, my mind racing. Had NASA found proof of extraterrestrial life? More than that, had they made contact with something from outside our universe? The deeper I went, the more bizarre the files became. There was another folder, this one labeled Wormhole Trial 7. It contained several video files, but one stood out. Test Sequence 7A. My finger hovered over the play button. Against my better judgment, I clicked it. The video was grainy, like old security footage, showing what appeared to be a lab. Scientists in white coats moved frantically around a large, cylindrical machine. In the background, I could hear the hum of machinery, punctuated by sharp, electronic beeps. The timestamp showed this footage was from 8 years ago. The camera zoomed in on a glowing field at the center of the machine. I watched in stunned silence as the field began to ripple, as if reality itself were bending. A small object, a probe of some kind, was pushed into the glowing field. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the machine shuddered violently, and the field exploded in light, temporarily blinding the camera. When the image cleared, the probe was gone. One of the scientists shouted something I couldn't hear, and the camera abruptly cut off. The video ended, but not before a final chilling frame. An empty lab, the machine destroyed, and a single line of text flashing across the screen. Test failed. Anomaly detected. I sat back, my heart pounding. What had I just seen? It was as if they had been experimenting with creating wormholes, and something had gone terribly wrong. Worse, they had known it was dangerous. Yet, they had continued. I was about to close the browser when a new file appeared on the screen, one that hadn't been there moments before. It was labeled simply "Read Me." I hesitated, my finger trembling over the mouse. Something about this felt wrong, like I was about to cross a line I couldn't come back from. But curiosity won out. I clicked it. The file opened, and a single message appeared in plain text. "You are being watched. This is your last warning. Stop digging, or you won't like what you find." My blood ran cold. I glanced around the room, half expecting to see something, or someone, watching me through the darkness. How could they know I was here? Was it some kind of advanced tracking? Had I triggered a security protocol? Panic set in. I yanked the Ethernet cable from my router and shut down the computer, my mind racing. I had seen too much, far too much. For the next few days, I didn't sleep. I felt like I was being followed, watched. Strange things started happening. My phone would buzz with unknown numbers, always hanging up when I answered. Cars I didn't recognize would park across the street from my apartment. My computer, even disconnected from the internet, would flicker to life in the middle of the night, as if someone was remotely accessing it. And then, one night, there was a knock at my door. It was 3 a.m., and the sound echoed through my apartment like a gunshot. I froze in bed, heart pounding. No one knocks at 3 a.m. unless it's an emergency or something far worse. I crept to the door, peeking through the peephole. 2 men stood outside, dressed in dark suits. No badges, no identifying marks, just blank expressions. One of them knocked again, more insistently this time. "Can we come in?" one of them asked, his voice calm but firm. It wasn't a request. It was a demand. I opened the door a crack, my breath shallow. "Who are you?" "We're with the agency that handles sensitive information," the man said. "You've accessed files you shouldn't have. This is your only chance to make it right." My mind raced. NASA? FBI? CIA? I had no idea who these men were, but I knew they were serious. I started to protest, but he cut me off. "Hand over your devices. All of them. We'll make this go away." I hesitated for a long moment, but I knew I had no choice. I handed over my laptop, my phone, anything that could have been compromised. They left without another word, disappearing into the night as quietly as they had come. It's been months since that night. My devices were wiped clean, and I haven't dared to dig into the dark web again. But I can't shake what I saw. The experiments, the missions, the warning. The truth is out there, buried in the darkest corners of the digital world. But it's not meant to be found. Some knowledge is too dangerous, too unsettling. I'll never know exactly what NASA was hiding, but I know this. The universe is far stranger than we can imagine, and some doors, once opened, can never be closed. If you ever stumble across files that shouldn't exist, be careful. Some secrets will haunt you forever. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed what you've heard and want to hear more, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It really helps the channel grow, and I truly appreciate your support.